Whether you're a Bible publisher, a literary agent, a scholar, a dean, a pastor, whether you're a ministry team, what I'd like to share with you over the next 3 to 5 minutes, but the video will keep going for many reasons that you'll see. But in just 3 minutes, I want to introduce you to what is arguably the most important scholarly work in Christian scholarship in 2,000 years. This is what's popularly called the Harmony of the Gospels, also called the Timeline of Christ's Ministry. Now, you have had your hands on these ever since you started reading the Bible. These Harmony of the Gospels are in so many Bibles. They're in all the study Bibles. Okay, they're also called the Timeline of Christ. So you've received this box set, right? Now, these are draft versions of what is the product that is now can go out to all ages and all intellects for people that are interested in the Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. Jesus began his ministry at the baptism, right? So if you are a parent of a child that is 4 to 10 years old, and this is on their wall, you can grab this Baptism of Jesus booklet, open it up, right? And the artist's renditions of the baptism of Jesus. And if you're wondering, well, when did this event occur? Well, it occurred in the beginning of the Gospels. And so you just go over here, and you are in a baptism. Matthew chapter 3, Mark chapter 1, Luke chapter 3, John chapter 1. Now you come down a little bit. Children 4 to 10, right? Fishers of men. When did that occur? You can see exactly when it occurred. It occurred here in the summer. You come down to the spring. Jesus feeds 5,000 men. This is Passion Week. This is the last week of Jesus' earthly ministry right there. So in an instant, you have the chronology, you have the timeline, and I'm going to get into the scholarship within this 3 to 5 minutes. Because right here, there is a 30-foot poster that's hung right here. There's a 13-foot poster right here. So I'm going to get to those. So hold on a second. So this is a draft version, right, for the next age group. The poster's longer. It's the same content. Now I'm going to be talking about the translation because I solved what's called the Harmony of the Gospels, I actually have the closest translation, the closest rendition from Greek to English, which is readable by all ages. And you're gonna see that if you stick around. So not only do we have the timeline, which I solved 20 years ago, you're gonna see those posters as well. But I also have the translations, which is the booklets. And the booklets has every word, every sentence written by the authors, harmonized. Every word tells the story chronologically. So readers of the New Testament are not missing a thing. As we keep moving up in age group, right, then the design changes. Is it a male, female? Is it a gift? Right? What language are these going to be in? Okay? And then the adult posters, right? Here's a little bit about myself. You'll see this down here about the author. Here's a book that I've written, Playing Baseball and Talking About God. Here's a handy index, right? You take this index, a timetable, you put it in your Bible, and you have the true timeline of Jesus' ministry, which includes the seasons, which is winter, spring, summer, fall, winter, spring, summer, fall, winter, and spring. Okay, so in 2000, I created these 3 posters. In these 3 posters, Harmony of the Gospel Solved, Michael Pegon, Fall 2000. This project is 20 years old this year. And what I identified, what scholarship hadn't seen, is that there's 4 easily identifiable displaced blocks of Matthean text. So if you know the story of Peter's mother-in-law is healed, many healed after Sabbath sunset, that's only 4 verses in Matthew. Okay? Well, I had to relocate those 4 verses to where they naturally align with Mark and Luke. And so Luke's gospel is vindicated. He did give us an orderly account. He did examine everything from the beginning for our knowledge. Okay, so Luke's prologue, if you know it, Luke chapter 1, verses 1 through 4. There's only 4 of these. This is the most conservative scholarship. All right, so if you stick around, that's what this project is. In 2008, I was awarded my second master's, Azusa Pacific University, Haggard Graduate School of Theology, now Azusa Pacific Seminary, and I proved the 2 most important aspects of this that someone has to prove. You have to identify these 4 displaced blocks of text in Matthew. Everything else lines up, okay? And then you also have to prove and show what we popularly call John's Unnamed Festival, which is John chapter 5. And once again, the scholarship is conservative. Everything just lines up. You just look at John 2, 3, 4, 5, leave it right where it is. I have journal articles. You've received those in the book. Now, let me show you this 13-foot poster. This poster is 2 years old now. And I'm going to tell you what this poster is. This project has been proven so many times in so many ways over 20 years. You're looking at a harmony of the Gospels, Matthew, Mark, and Luke, the 3 seasons that were affected by those displaced blocks of Matthew. So if you were to read from left to right, top to bottom, and just read sequentially from top to bottom, Mark and Luke are not moved. Mark and Luke are in agreement. But you relocate those 4 displaced blocks of Matthean text, everything lines up perfect. They harmonize. There's chronology, there's narrative, there's gospel content that Matthew brings in and informs Mark and Luke. So not only did I identify the 4 displaced blocks of Matthean text, but now I've proven it with the content and the narrative, which is great news because we're not moving Mark. And we're not moving Luke. It's only those 4 displaced blocks of Matthean text. You just cut and paste those 4 sections. This is the 3 seasons affected by those 4 displaced blocks. Now, just so you know, if you're not familiar with the harmony of the Gospels, the timeline of Christ, about 20 years ago, scholarship really did resign themselves from proving a true timeline of Christ's ministry. Right about the time that I was proving this, the concept of Q, or an unknown gospel, was really becoming more standardized. So what was once a conjectural, liberal kind of trend in biblical scholarship, unfortunately that became normalized in conservative New Testament scholarship. So I'm going to show you why Q is a hoax. If you don't know what I'm talking about, I'm going to refer you to this 30-foot poster right here. Okay? What they're saying with Q regarding Matthew, Mark, and Luke is that there's another unknown source that informed Matthew, Mark, and Luke. Right? And so if I got this ladder, right, I could show you that Matthew, Mark, and Luke only contribute material in 3 clusters. Matthew, Mark, and Luke are not sporadically volunteering information, but in 3 clusters. And way up there at the top is the first cluster. And that is where Luke affirms Mark's chronology. That's called, in scholarship circles, that's called the synoptic problem. That Luke fails to agree with Matthew against Mark. In other words, Luke is proving Mark. That's why Luke wrote his gospel, to give us the narrative, to give us the story from beginning to end, so we can know with confidence Christ's ministry. Now, here's the second cluster right here. You're looking right at it. You're looking right at the second cluster right here. Okay? There's only 3 of these. And if if we were able, you're going to see that this poster just keeps going. Okay? There's only 3 of these clusters. They're not talking about the same thing all the time. They're talking about unique and different information most of the time. So you get your artist's hands on these projects, okay? And you're going to have all ages, all intellects, all languages, right? And you're going to have so much product that it's going to keep everybody busy. Now, what I'm showing you here is what you have in the box, which is a journal article. And so this is going to prove to you that what I've done is reproducible. Matthew's 4 displaced blocks are easily identifiable. It's scientific evidence because it is objective evidence that those 4 displaced blocks of Matthew, they have their corollaries in Mark and Luke. And I've solved what's called the synoptic problem. All right. Now, also what you have included is a defense of my first journal article. Okay, because I've been doing this for 20 years, I'm able to anticipate some of the questions or concerns, right? Very easy to prove. So you also have this replication of the fall 2000 work. This poster is what you can read and look at and refer to if you're reading the journal article. This is the reproducible evidence that shows Matthew's 4 displaced blocks. Everything else, this is unique to Luke, this is unique to John, this is unique to Luke, this is unique to John, this is unique to Luke. This is only John covers these 3 southward journeys when Jesus starts attending festivals again at tabernacles. Matthew and Mark are silent. So the insights of this work, they just keep going. It really has been a treasure chest of knowledge just waiting to be opened. And I thought, 20 years ago when I sent out this work, I thought we'd have a team. So the reason I'm showing the laptops here is because I wanted to mention that the reason the translation is Greek equivalence, right? It's kind of like saying if the King James scholars were looking at the Textus Receptus and they're seeing it in Greek, right? What are they looking at? You can know what they were looking at, because this is closer translation than an interlinear. This is Legion, the story of the demon-possessed man. Every word, every sentence written a story. Matthew, Mark, Luke. It's not missing a word. It's not missing a sentence. Matthew, Mark, and Luke are each harmonized one with another in narrative story format. And the reason we're able to do this is because the Gospels were written chronologically. And so if we read that they sailed and came to the other side of the sea, to the country of the Gadarenes, which is opposite Galilee, you're not missing anything about the introduction. You're getting all the content from Matthew, Mark, and Luke. And the reason I'm so glad to show you Legion is because this is the story where Matthew, Mark, and Luke each contribute so much unique information that the story really is a heartbreaker story for ministry. And this is the ministry aspect of this scholarship work. So you don't have to skirt around, right? If let's say I look over here and I'm trying to find Legion in the winter. So where is the story of the demon-possessed man? Legion's testimony, right? Matthew chapter 8, Mark chapter 5, Luke chapter 8. In an instant, I know where to find that story in each of the 3 Gospels. And in an instant, we know what season it occurred in. And in an instant, we know how far along Jesus was in his ministry, from the time of his baptism, through calling the first disciples, through the Sermon on the Mount, right? The 12 were appointed in autumn, and in that following winter, there's the Legion. Okay, and you know how far until he's going to get crucified. You can see the timeline that he's about a year out from what we popularly call Passion Week. This is a reference tool for Bible scholars, for seminarians, for pastors. This is a reference for parents with children. This is a reference for teenagers wanting to know Jesus. This is a reference and a tool for college students, right? Young people that are seeking Jesus. Now, in 2015, I sent out there, I've included this letter for you. I sent this out. It was a $1,000 send out. I sent this giant 6-foot poster out, which is 3 posters. I sent this work out in the year 2015. And if you look on the back of this letter, you will see the recipients of this work. Okay? So you're going to get to see some of the people that have had this work come to them through the mail. If you want to know who's had visibility of this work, give me a call. Send me an email. I'd love to hear from you. I'd love to talk to you. But because this work is provable, reproducible, and it's so conservative, this is what I like to think of as John 3:16 Christianity. For God so loved the world that he gave his Son. And Luke wants us to know, and Mark wants us to know, and Matthew wants us to know, and John wants us to know the story of God's Son given to us, that those of us who believe in him do not perish but have everlasting life. So I've got to hear from you. I've got to find out if you're already excited for your artists doing their renditions of the posters with the booklets, right? I've got to find out if you have any questions about the translation work. And the reason I have this laptop right here is because this is a 7,000 row translation apparatus. It's unique, one of a kind. No one's done anything like this. Since this poster that shows the synoptic problem solved is 30 foot, this poster that's in here is a translation apparatus that gives us the truest translation called Greek equivalence. It's my original work. And so we have, because there's 4 Gospels, and now we have 2, 3, or 4 authors each contributing the same story, we can translate Greek better, whether it's a conjunction, whether it's a preposition, whether it's a word that's used a lot, whether it's a word that's used a little. So you have actually the best translation ever offered. The most understandable at every age group, because the Gospels were given to us in plain language of the people to tell a story. And all 4 authors did that, and they're very, very consistent in the manner that they tell that story. So, my name is Michael Pigon. This is the 20th anniversary, and you are a recipient of what's arguably the most important scholarly work in 20 years. And that's proving the true timeline of Christ's ministry, also called the Harmony of the Gospels. And it's coming at a time when scholarship had given up, once again, trying to even do this work. And instead, now the conjectural Q source has been popularized, and people are doing more hypothecating and guesswork, and they've just resigned themselves to not knowing the true timeline of Jesus' ministry. But we do know it. And we have biblical permission to read those 4 displaced blocks of Matthean text to where they occur in Mark and Luke. And that's because of the 2-witness principle established by Moses, Jesus, and Paul. It's also repeated in Hebrews. And this is Luke affirming Mark. Luke affirms Mark's gospel. Isn't that exciting? Luke affirms Mark's gospel account. And Matthew agrees as well. You can see on that poster that you have there all this yellow and yellow and yellow and yellow and yellow that's coming down this poster right here. That's where 3 gospel accounts naturally align. But everything else aligns. Everything does align. Just sometimes there's maybe just 2 that agree. And the 3rd gospel or 4th gospel writers, they're silent. But they're all in agreement. They are all orderly It's all story. It's from beginning to end. And that's why you can embrace this scholarship as the most conservative timeline of Christ, harmony of the Gospels, translation work that's ever been done. And it starts with identifying that those 4 displaced blocks of Matthew are very obviously, very clearly out of order compared to the way occur with Mark and Luke. Okay, now I'm a big fan of Levi the tax collector. He was there at the Sermon on the Mount. He was taking notes, and Jesus called him to the ministry right after that. So you can imagine when Jesus went to Levi's house, you can imagine that his notes were there in that house. The Sermon on the Mount, his notes were written there in the Hebraic, Aramaic, language of that area, right? And the 12 are not called until after that. So it is as if Levi had worked his way into the position of an apostle by being a biographer of Jesus. Isn't that a wonderful way to get a job? Okay? Jesus already had relationships with Peter, Andrew, James, John, Philip. Levi is called early. I'm a big fan of Matthew's gospel. Somehow, these 4 blocks of Matthean text just became displaced. And another reason, if you look at the journal article, this is conservative scholarship, is that the scenario for how that could have happened lines up with early Christian scholarship. Because Mark was looking at Matthew's notes. Mark was not looking at a published Hebrew gospel. He's looking at Levi the tax collector's notes and writes his gospel. And when you look at the poster format, let me close out here, okay? If you look at the poster format, Mark and Matthew begin and end at the same spot so many places. You can see that there is very clearly literary dependence between the two. Somebody is looking at somebody. So just at a glance, if you just look at this section, right, between these 2 gospels, while these 2 are silent, okay, look how they continue on here, and then there's all this silence. They're both silent, while Luke covers Jesus' travel from north to south to attend tabernacles, John 7, 8, 9, and 10. In Luke, Jesus pops up at the north again, travels from the north to the south to attend the Feast of Dedication, John chapter 10, verse 22. Jesus pops up in the Gospel of Luke at the top again, and he travels from north to south to get to the final week of his earthly existence here. And the whole time, Matthew and Mark are silent until they begin again at exactly the same spot. And that happens over and over again with Matthew and Mark. There's very clearly literary dependence. So if Levi wrote notes in the language of the Hebrews, and they sourced those notes, translating from notes as best they could, then their writing is still inspirational. They're just referring to Levi the tax collector's Hebraic notes. And if Matthew provided his own Greek gospel, then his gospel is still inspired because he just referred to his own notes. And this is where the nuances in the different wording comes. They are sourcing Matthew's initial Hebraic notes. He's an early biographer of Jesus Christ. I'm a big fan of Matthew. I wanted to make that perfectly clear. And the story, when you find the narrative and the story of Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, you fall in love with the personality of Jesus because you see how he begins his ministry, begins his relationships, nurtures those relationships. And that's whether we're talking about his friends in Galilee or his nemesis in Jerusalem. And you get to fall in love with the disciples. And so that's one reason why I just love the story of fishers of men versus Simon's big catch. These are 2 very different stories. Fishers of men, when Jesus is walking, he says they left some things, right? Peter and Andrew left their nets. James and John left their father Zebedee in the boat, and they followed Jesus. Jesus has to come back for them after a tour with Simon's miraculous catch of fish. And then Scripture says they leave everything and follow him. Then he goes and he gives the Sermon on the Mount. Very early in his ministry, and who's at the Sermon on the Mount? Levi. So my name is Michael Pigon, michael.pigon@gmail.com, michaelpigon@outlook.com, area code 626-327-2516. I'm so excited to get this work out. I hope we can get the stories of Jesus back into the church and nourish people with the ministry of Christ as Luke intended. So look at Luke 1 through 4. Look how he begins his gospel. And you'll see he gives us an orderly account. And he is in fact affirming Mark. So hope to hear from you. And this has been Michael Pigon, 20th anniversary of the Harmony of Gospels, the true timeline of Christ's earthly ministry.